Hey, welcome back to another Breadcrumbs video. Today we are in the book of 2 Kings, chapters 12 and 13, and we're also in 2 Chronicles, chapter 24. And we see the end of Elisha. Elisha passes away at this chapter in our reading, and we also see some continuing judgment from God on the people of Israel and Judah for their wickedness and their continuing idolatry. And so what's really in my heart to talk about today is just God as a judge, and how a couple places here we have King Jehoahaz and his son King Jehoash, and both of them are guilty of continuing to commit the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. And so this has come up a number of times as we've been reading through the legacy of the kings, that really as the kingdom of Israel pivoted away from Solomon, and Rehoboam and Jeroboam both split the kingdom and took the nation of Israel into really darkness, spiritual darkness. God has continued to try and discipline Israel, and he's using King Hazael of Aram in this particular portion to come in and really subjugate his people again. It almost is like the book of the Judges again, where there's so much sin in the land that God is allowing a foreign power to come in and oppress and hold down his people, hoping that they would return from their sin and return with their whole heart to worship him. So things are really dark right now in the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. The king of Judah, Joash, is assassinated in this reading today, for killing the priest Jehoiada's son. And so there's just so much intrigue, political intrigue, spiritual idolatry, darkness. Foreign powers are oppressing both Israel and Judah. It's really a dark time in the history of the kingdom of Israel. But we have the principle here that God is the judge, and he is the one that raises kings up, sets some kings aside. He sends prophets to kings to warn, to correct, to discipline, but so often his word goes unheeded. And so this is a depressing part of reading through the history of Israel, and yet there's still lessons for us to take to heart regarding loving the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. That the Lord will bear with us for a season, and he will even allow really challenging circumstances to come in order that people would turn. And so God is a righteous judge, and that's the way that he decided to deal with the rebellion of Israel. He's a covenant-keeping God, and he's calling his people back to him, and the leaders of the people are the ones responsible to really lead the people of Israel to God. So you contrast Jehoahaz and his son Jehoash with King David. And, King David was the shepherd of Israel, and he was teaching Israel how to follow God and had instituted the priesthood. But here we are just having king after king after king after king continuing to slide even more into more spiritual darkness progressively, despite having to learn hard lessons. And so just the wickedness of rebellion and the stubbornness of the human heart, and the hardness of rebellion in the heart of man, just very evident in these pages as we study what's happening to Israel and how kings continue to lead Israel away from God as opposed to lead them to God. And finally, we have the end of Elisha the Prophet, a very interesting story where the king of Israel, Jehoash, comes to him, and Elisha's about to die. He does a prophetic act with the king and fires the arrow out of the window, and this is the arrow of the Lord, and he tells the king, grab a handful of arrows and bang him on the ground. And Jehoash, we know the story, he only strikes the ground 3 times, and Elisha is frustrated with him, saying, if you would have struck it 6 or 7 times, you would have completely destroyed Aram. But even as it is now, this is only going to represent the 3 victories that the Lord is going to give you. And so Jehoash half-heartedly responds to the word of the Lord and doesn't fully engage. with what God is trying to do in terms of deliver his people from their oppressors. So it is definitely an appropriate picture of the half-hearted, if it's even half-hearted response from these kings regarding what God is trying to tell them and lead them and show them, and even making them available to them despite the idolatry and the wickedness. And so it is a very interesting story at Elisha's end here, and he's put into the tomb. And then there's even an interesting story, even then, that some of these Israelites throw a dead body in there because raiders come, and the dead body, as soon as it touches Elisha's bones, comes back to life. So amazing man of God, Elisha, and we're in dark days in Israel's history, but we're going to continue moving forward as we continue our journey through the Bible. So hope you guys are enjoying this experience in the Word of God, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon. God bless you.